the County of Los Angeles has 10 million residents, which makes us the most populous county in the country. And then imagine that almost 4 out of every 10 residents, 3.5 million people, are immigrants born abroad. And what they contribute to the county is vital to the county economy, to the county's culture, just to the quality of life. So without the full engagement, without the full participation of our immigrant communities, it becomes very difficult for the county to function in the way we like. And that's why we brought this campaign, ethnic media, hyper-local media campaign, to let our communities know that the county stands behind them, particularly during this critical times in dealing with the pandemic. And certainly immigration legal services to help them is vital. And as you know, we rely on the ethnic media. This is not the first time, certainly not to this extent, but throughout. We know you are trusted voices in those communities. We're your partnership in delivering the information and really assuring our communities that it is okay to access these services. Because as you know, immigrants have a double concern. The pandemic is one thing, but they also fear that if they access these services, it may have a negative impact on their immigration status. You will hear from my colleagues in a minute about those services available. But again, we rely on you ethnic media outlets to get the word out that is helpful, that is timely, and that is accurate, which is very important. So I'm going to, briefly review something that is very dear and close to my heart, and that is the harm that fake attorneys, people who pretend to be attorneys, people who pretend that they know legal rules and procedures, and charge our immigrant communities hefty fees, supposedly to help them get through some immigration case, end up harming them, not just by the money they take from our immigrants, money that they cannot afford to waste, but also, at the end of many cases, the consumer, the immigrant, ends up in a worse situation because when someone opens a case, it closes in one of two ways. The person gets accepted or the person gets denied. And if those pretending to be attorneys don't know what they are doing or intentionally provide information that is inaccurate, that is wrong, then that's going to result on a deportation proceeding. And so now we end up with a family who has lost their money, and now they are facing deportation proceedings. And sadly, many immigrants who are victimized by these individuals fear that if they file a complaint to get some help, that's going to impact their immigration status. They don't want to become a part of some government undertaken investigation procedure. And so they rather not complain, lose the money, and sometimes face the consequences of some immigration procedure against them. So I want to remind our friends in the ethnic media services to alert our immigrant communities that it is understandable when we're facing uncertainty, tremendous need. We're going to look for people who claim to have the answers. but we have to be very careful. We have to go to legal aid organizations that provide legitimate services for free or very low cost. We should consult also with licensed attorneys, but we should not go to individuals who are not attorneys, who don't have the right under California law to provide legal advice to us. So our Office of Immigrant Affairs is the home for immigrants and their families to learn about these issues. They can get information, or we can connect them to the right place to get the right help. If you have one bar left on your phone's battery, I would always say, use that bar to give us a call and get the right help. And I'm talking, about services that go beyond the legal representation. That is one issue that we see constantly, one issue that is very harmful, and certainly we want to prevent it. But remember, we have information about services for older adults, immigrant older adults. Imagine people who are concerned about going to the supermarket, because of the high risk of exposure to the virus. There are programs to help them get through this. We're talking about, renters, as you will hear in a minute, people facing foreclosure. There are prevention services. We have information and can connect you to those. Street vendors, it's another segment of our vulnerable population. Sometimes they don't know the basic information, about how to go about it. They can call us. We can consult them. We can provide information. We can connect them to the right place. And the same thing goes as we cover in past debriefings with people who don't even have food to feed their families. Please give us a call. We have that information available where you can get those resources. And lastly, just remember that most of these services, as will be discussed in more detail by my colleague Dan Sharp, are not impacting the immigration status of our communities. Do not be afraid to seek the help you need. We want to hear from you. We will give you the information. We will connect you to those services.
So just to give you an overview, the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, also known as DCBA, serves consumers, businesses, and communities through education, advocacy, and complaint resolution. So our overarching mission is to create a fair and vibrant marketplace for consumers and businesses. One of the things that we focus on is providing tenants and landlords with resources and information, and the division of the department that handles these types of services information is the Housing and Tenant Protections Unit. And so what does the Housing and Tenant Protections Unit do? It oversees implementation and enforcement of some key critical laws and ordinances that govern tenant rights in the county. So two of the primary ones are the county's Rent Stabilization Ordinance, known as RSO, and the county's Mobile Home Rent Stabilization Ordinance. And so those two pieces of county law govern the types of increases that a landlord can impose on a yearly basis, and also provide protections for tenants. Landlords cannot just evict anybody unless they have a just cause reason. And these laws apply to units in unincorporated parts of the county. There's other jurisdictions like the city of LA, Beverly Hills, et cetera, that have their own rent stabilization ordinance, but you could always call our department if you're unsure about what laws might apply to you. Another thing that our department also oversees is the county's eviction moratorium. So right now there's a local county moratorium, a state moratorium, and a federal moratorium. And so there's a lot of confusion as a lot of times about what are the protections that apply to me? Am I protected? So whenever you have those kind of questions, we always recommend that you call our department. And so on this slide, you have the hotline where you can reach us, which is 833-223-RENT, which is 7368. And always feel free if you're unsure about, what laws apply to you, or if you're having some type of a dispute If you're a tenant, or even if you're a landlord, if you want to know kind of what is the legal landscape, feel free to call our hotline. We provide advice for both tenants and landlords. And other ways to reach us are through our email and to visit our website. So what I'm here to really talk specifically about is our State House LA County program, which is a countywide tenant or eviction defense program that provides free legal assistance to income eligible tenants all across the county, no matter where you live. And so this is a large program. It's a $20 million program. It's the first of its kind in Southern California that brings together about 20 partner legal service providers and community-based organizations. So these organizations range from, Neighborhood Legal Services, Inner City Law Center, the Legal Aid Foundation of LA, Inquilinos Unidos, EDN. There's a lot of organizations that are part of this network that are providing services and providing that legal defense that tenants really need during these times. And so the 5 primary components of this program, kind of broken up very simply, is one, there's a public awareness component. So part of this program is to make sure that countywide residents are aware that this program exists. And so we do that through digital marketing and media buys on social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We also do media placements on radio, on TV, and on print media. And we also do specific ethnic media outreach as well. The second component of our program is direct tenant outreach and education. So this comes in the form of virtual Know Your Rights workshops that are conducted in English and other languages, such as Spanish. We also do phone banking and texting to community members. So you may have received randomly a text from State House Lake County. We do a massive campaign, and we reached over 200,000 tenants in this way. And the core components, again, are these free legal services. And we also have a component of short-term rental assistance that will help a tenant if they're falling behind in rent and there's a need to provide them assistance to remain in their home. And lastly, our service providers do refer you to other resources if you're in need of assistance from maybe the Department of Public Social Services or Department of Public Health. We try to connect individuals to other resources that might help them during these challenging times. Really, I've discussed kind of the legal services component, which is really the core of the program. And so there's 2 types. There's limited scope legal representation and full scope legal representation. And the distinction between both of those types of representation, and one is really focused on if you have some type of a dispute with your landlord, if you're being, intimidated or harassed, if your landlord has given you some type of a verbal notification that they're going to try to evict you, you would come to us and speak to us so that we can try to get you connected to a lawyer before you have an actual eviction case, which is called an unlawful detainer. So they help you prepare documents, respond to any, phone calls, formal letters that they've provided, try to help you resolve your issue before it goes to court. If you have received some type of formal notice from a court, then you would get the full scope legal representation, which is comprehensive, and you would retain an attorney. Again, it's completely free, and they would help you by representing you during your court case, and to provide all kinds of other comprehensive legal services. For example, if you're a victim of harassment from a landlord. And finally, as I mentioned, there's a short-term rental assistance component, which provides up to $7,500 if you're backed up in rent, or proactively if you feel like you're going to fall behind in rent. It's either $7,500 or 3 months, whichever is less. And these things can cover utility, security deposits, other expenses that might not be direct rent payments. And so the eligibility for these services, again, is you must be a resident of LA County. You must have received some type of a notification from your landlord that they're trying to go through the eviction process, the UD complaint process, or you've gotten harassed or retaliated against for exercising your tenant rights. And so in order to benefit from the limited scope legal representation, there are income requirements. And so it's very important for me to note that if you are an immigrant or, you're an undocumented individual, it does not matter your legal status for you to become eligible to receive services under this program. When you apply or you call us to find out what you might be eligible for, our legal service providers do an intake where you self-certify your income. So please don't feel afraid if you're hesitant to call. We're here to help, and residential status, legal status in the country should not be a concern. But with that said, there are specific income requirements. So if you want limited scope legal representation, you can't make more than $90,000 a year for a family of four, or $63,000 if you're a single person. Or if you want full scope legal representation and short-term rental assistance, you can't make more than 50% of the area median income, which is defined as $56,000 a year for a family of four, or $40,000 for a single person household. So just to kind of wrap this up, in order to get connected to our services, the main thing that we recommend people do is go to our website. Our website is in English, Spanish, and other languages. As you see the homepage here, it's called stayhousela.org. This is where you can learn more about your rights and do an online questionnaire to find out if you are in need of legal services or other types of services. So again, you can find out more about your rights. You can also visit our DCBA website to learn more about all the ordinances that I've talked about and about all these protections that are under our program. You can also sign up to attend a workshop. Again, they're all virtual, they're in multiple languages, and they happen almost every single day. And again, you can fill out a questionnaire intake form for free legal services. And so you can also stay connected to us by signing up through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on all social media platforms. And you can also sign up through our website to receive information in the form of a newsletter and email updates at the bottom of the homepage. And so again, if you have any questions, you can contact us through our hotline. There is the Stay House, and I forgot to mention, there is a Stay House specific hotline. So you can either call the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, or you can actually call our individualized hotline, which is 888-694-0040. And again, you can contact us through our DCBA hotline, which is up on the page.
I just wanted today to talk about a program called Medical Legal Community Partnership. This is something that is specific to our patients, our 400 plus patients of Department of Health Services, 400,000 plus patients, as well as patients in whole person care, which is another program that I'm not going to get into, but basically for high risk Medi-Cal participants. So I just want everybody to take a second. I know you guys are pretty active in the chat right now. So if you can take a second to just jot down some barriers that you think low income patients, the people that you guys write about day in and day out, are experiencing right now. And Pilar, because I'm having trouble seeing the chat. Oh wait, maybe I can see it now. Yeah, I got it. Okay. So yes, if people can just type in a few things. I'll just throw out one as an example, and some of these little pictures show you examples. Housing would be a barrier, something people are dealing with right now, and we just heard a lot about from our previous speaker. So feel free to type in anything. I will keep going though. So some of these barriers are, as you see in the pictures here, money, finances, access to healthcare, access to food, access to housing, access to transportation. So this is what is called, as you all probably know, the social determinants of health. It's a horrible phrase. It's a horrible saying. Fear of immigration status, great. Fear of being exposed, good, Sandy, thank you. But what it basically means is that people have other things outside of their medical conditions that impact their health. All of these things, right? Employment, income, your language ability to communicate with others, or accessible services in your language, your neighborhoods, availability of parks, how all of that impacts people's health and truly impacts people's life expectancy, as you all know. So we started a program in 2018 called Medical Legal Community Partnership. What it is is exactly what the title says. It is a partnership between doctors and health providers and lawyers. So the two groups, the lawyers and the medical team, they work together to address those barriers that we are talking about, those barriers that impact their health. They handle legal issues such as evictions, access to benefits. And I'll go into a little bit more in a minute. But they do a few things. They provide direct legal assistance. So before COVID, before the pandemic, we had the lawyers actually located at the health clinic. So a doctor could be doing an exam on a patient, and then the patient could say, "Oh, I just got evicted last week," or I'm in this relationship that is not a safe one, and I don't know what to do about it. And the doctors could send them right down the hall to meet with the lawyer. And now during COVID, it's all become remote, but they really do still work as a team. They provide this direct legal assistance. The other thing that the lawyers do is that they train people, and they train the doctors and social workers and community health workers to understand some of these legal barriers and to understand that some of these issues that people are having are actually legal issues. Sometimes they can't be addressed by a social worker, they can't be addressed by a doctor, but they can be addressed by legal action or legal involvement. Here's what we call it iHelp, with an extra H. But here's the issues that our lawyers from these nonprofit legal firms help with: income, housing. That includes utilities. If utilities are unfairly shut off, or people are living in really poor living conditions, like mold in the apartment. And mold is actually a great example because mold can contribute to asthma. Asthma attacks land you in the emergency room. If you get get rid of the mold in your apartment, your asthma attacks will likely subside, and you won't have to go to the emergency room as much. Health coverage and access, education, special education issues for children, literacy, legal status, that's the immigration, and personal and community safety. So that's violence, domestic violence. There's a lot of things under each of these categories, but that's the basic outline of the kinds of services that the lawyers provide. There's a bunch of different partners. You guys know these legal aid organizations well. They are fantastic. Neighborhood Legal Services of LA, the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, VetSetic, and Mental Health Advocacy Services. Those are our key partners. And while our program, the Medical Legal Partnership, is for our patients at DHS, all of these organizations serve the community in lots of different partnerships and just individually on their own. So people can always be sent to these organizations. All right, so I just want to share a little bit more about the program. And I hope you guys will consider writing about it. I think it's super interesting and a great story. In fact, one of my very first stories in 2010, when I started covering healthcare, was about medical legal partnerships. It was at St. John's Well Child and Family Center, and it was in partnership with Neighborhood Legal Services. And it featured a young lawyer who was also a doctor who was working on these programs. And then fast forward 10 years later, and I work very closely with that lawyer / doctor on this program. So anyway, it's fascinating, lots of really compelling tales. It started in 2018 at one site, MLK Outpatient Center, the Martin Luther King Junior Outpatient Center down next to the Martin Luther King Community Hospital. And then we expand, community health workers could also call in, to help people reach these services. There's also programs like this across the nation. We're not unique, which makes it even more interesting from a journalistic perspective, because this is something that is across the country and has impact. There's been a ton of research on it, academic research, that it helps decrease costs of healthcare. It helps people build trust in the health system and in the legal system, and it improves people's health overall. I mentioned that during the pandemic, we've moved it to phone services, but it's more important than ever. We know that people are dealing with a lot of different issues because of the pandemic. So I'm going to get to a couple examples because I think that'll bring it to life. But let me just show this really quick. That this we've served since in the 2 years plus 2.5 years. This is the most recent data I have, about 3,300 people so far in this program. And the biggest issue by far is income. People who've lost their Social Security, access to their Social Security check or to their cash aid, who've unfairly been cut off of their food stamps, that sort of thing. And the second kind of tied issues are immigration issues, public charge, big one, and housing conditions and evictions. Okay, so, oh no, it stopped the slideshow. Let me see if I can, give me just 1 second. Maybe I can at least open it on my screen so I can just tell you a little bit about a couple examples of cases that we have had. Okay, all right, so here's one. This is a housing issue. So this is somebody who was threatened of being locked out by her landlord. And her lawyers provided her with legal counsel and advised her on her rights and legal process prior to eviction. And she had no idea. She had no idea of this process, what her rights were, how to handle an eviction. All she knew is that she'd gotten this eviction notice and this lockout. And so the lawyer, or this threat of a lockout, the lawyers represented her in court and negotiated a favorable outcome for her. Okay, here's another one. This is healthcare. I stopped sharing my screen. So I know somebody said you can't share my screen. So that was really the end of the slideshow. I just have a couple examples of cases, but I'm just going to talk you through them. So you don't have to read on my words on the screen. The second one is a healthcare issue. This is somebody who was recently released from jail. And when you're in jail, you lose access to Medi-Cal. So the person was coming out of jail and didn't know how to get back onto Medi-Cal and needed a surgical procedure and was experiencing delays with Medi-Cal and couldn't get the appointment scheduled until the Medi-Cal issue got resolved. It was a mess. So the lawyers helped him get in touch with HealthNet, which is a Medi-Cal health plan here in LA County, which immediately looked into the case and scheduled him ASAP to get back onto Medi-Cal and to help get this procedure, this surgery. And the lawyers also helped the client get onto Medi-Cal and really understand how to use it. The lawyers communicated directly with the Department of Public Social Services to make sure the Medi-Cal application went through without any problems. So they're advocates as well as lawyers, right? They do both for these patients. Okay, and then the final one is immigration, an immigration example. This was a person who had immigrated from Guatemala into the United States, into Los Angeles. Her husband had been abusive, and she reported the domestic violence to the police. Now, she didn't know that actually enables her or allows her to get a special type of visa at the time. It's called a U visa for people who are victims of crime. And the lawyers helped this client with a petition to get that U visa and to be able to get a visa to stay in the US. So these are just 3 examples, that migration, healthcare, and housing, of really how this project works and how this access to legal services and civil legal services can actually help people's health. Once somebody is able to stay in their apartment, keep their Medi-Cal benefits, or get a visa to actually stay in the country, all of that, and to get out of an abusive relationship, all of that helps people stay healthier.
Very briefly, these 3 areas of immigration policy, immigration law, directly impact hundreds of thousands of Angelenos and millions of people nationwide. LA County has taken a very strong and clear stance in support of our immigrant communities around the issues of public charge, and administration's attempts to terminate DACA and TPS for years were the home to the largest number of DACA beneficiaries in the country. and one of the largest communities of TPS holders, and probably the largest community of people potentially impacted by the public charge rule. And so the Board of Supervisors opposed the change to the public charge rule. It opposed the termination of DACA, and then the county has supported litigation contesting the public charge rule and the termination of DACA. And then our office, the Office of Immigrant Affairs, has worked to support immigrant communities impacted by these policies, both connecting them to service providers, conducting outreach and education events so that folks understand their rights and what is actually happening with these significant policy changes. After some very difficult years, I'm pleased to say that there are some very positive developments that I want to share, and we are optimistic that we will have additional positive developments to report in the coming months. So I want to address some of those today. With regard to DACA, the DACA program for those who have held DACA or who've been seeking to apply for the program, this has really been a roller coaster ride the last 4 years. It has been very difficult, I think, emotionally, to say the least, for people directly impacted. Do want to make clear that first-time DACA applications are now being accepted by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. So this current and outgoing administration attempted to end the DACA program in 2017. There were legal challenges to their attempts to end the program that resulted in the Supreme Court reviewing the matter in June of this year. The Supreme Court determined that the administration's attempts to terminate the DACA program were essentially in violation of the law, leaving the original DACA program in place. This administration then tried to narrowly interpret that decision by only allowing people who already had DACA to continue renewing their work permits. As a result of subsequent litigation, as of December 7th, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services is now accepting new initial DACA applications for people who qualified under the original rules established in 2012, but who had not yet filed a first-time application. The bulk of these individuals are people who turned 15 on or after the period in the fall of 2017 when this administration attempted to wind down the program. I want to also note that as a result of litigation, people who received a 1-year DACA work permit have now had automatically their work permit and their authorized period in the US extended to a 2-year period without having to take any further action on their part. And then people seeking to travel outside the country and return lawfully in a process called advanced parole are now allowed to apply for those travel permission requests under the rules originally established in 2012. I do want to note that there is uncertainty that continues to surround the program. Texas and several other states have challenged the constitutionality of the original DACA program. And there's a hearing in that litigation tomorrow. And so there does remain an air of uncertainty around the program. Most legal advocates, meanwhile, are recommending that individuals eligible under the initial, who meet the initial requirements, file their applications now while the period is clearly open. And I will just note that the original DACA program has already survived several legal challenges. It is impossible to predict what will happen in the hearing tomorrow or in the litigation that I've referenced. But I will note that the incoming administration has committed to protecting the program and to seeking legislation to provide a path to citizenship for DACA beneficiaries and others who came to the United States as children. As far as local capacity, there are certainly challenges in recent days as a large number of individuals have come forward to apply for the program for the first time. And the fee assistance that the state of California had made available so that people wouldn't have to pay their filing fee with USCIS has been exhausted, but individuals seeking a legal service provider or who may be interested in a low or no interest loan program, there's at least one still very viable no interest DACA filing fee loan program, can contact the Office of Immigrant Affairs to be connected to those resources. And I'm going to post here in the chat some info that we've put on our website about the DACA program. And then I want to jump into public charge. So on the public charge rule, that our prior speaker Anna Gorman has referenced both today and last week. I do want to make clear the rule that this administration began implementing in February of 2020, just before the pandemic, is currently blocked in the courts. That means the rule is just not in effect. A person who has an interview for their green card today with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services is not subject to the new public charge rule. This is an extremely positive development. Now, we know that this outgoing administration has indicated in writing it is reviewing the decision blocking the rule. It may seek review of that decision by the court, another court of appeals, or the U.S. Supreme Court. But for now, the rule remains blocked, and it is at least possible that the rule will never be in effect until the incoming administration takes office. And again, the Biden administration, the Biden campaign committed in writing to reversing the public charge rule and taking action to do that in its first 100 days. And I do want to make clear that the administration has full legal authority to implement that rule change when it takes office. In the meantime, I want everyone to keep in mind that notwithstanding any legal challenges to the currently blocked new public charge rule, USCIS clarified at the outset of the pandemic that COVID testing, treatment, and preventative care is exempt from the public charge rule. Really important, especially as we move into a phase of implementing a vaccination plan nationwide. Really important for folks to understand they can get tested, get the treatment, and then get that vaccine when their turn comes up without having any public charge concerns. But we know this rule, even while blocked and even before it went into effect, has had an enormous chilling effect in immigrant communities nationwide. The #1 phone call that the Office of Immigrant Affairs has fielded during the pandemic involves access to county programs and services, and whether there may be immigration consequences. In other words, public charge concerns. So I want to just clarify a couple things. First, many immigrants are not subject to the public charge rule at all. This includes legal permanent residents, most legal permanent residents, and humanitarian relief immigrants, asylees, and other humanitarian-based immigration relief applicants and beneficiaries are not subject to the public charge rule at all. Many programs and benefits are not considered in the public charge test at all, like the county-funded My Health LA program, and many state-funded benefits and programs are simply not considered in the public charge test. And then most immigrants subject to the public charge rule just aren't eligible for the benefits considered in the new rule anyway. This is all very confusing, and that's why we encourage folks to reach out to us if they have questions, concerns, fears about accessing a county benefit or program. Again, the #1 question we've answered during the pandemic has been, can I access X, Y, or Z benefit or program in light of my public charge fears and concerns? And I'm going to also post in the chat a little bit of info about that from our website. And then finally, I do want to address the issue of temporary protected status. LA County is home to about 30,000 temporary protected status beneficiaries, the largest single country of origin being El Salvador, followed by Honduras, but also many other individuals from Haiti, Nepal, Nicaragua, Sudan. And the Department of Homeland Security announced, despite this administration's attempts to end temporary protected status and force individuals from those countries that I just mentioned to return to their countries of origin, it is extending temporary protected status for those countries through October 4th, 2021. This is as a result of litigation by the ACLU of Southern California, the National Day Laborers Organizing Network, and the National TPS Alliance, coordinated by a local organization, CARESN, the Central American Resource Center, that has essentially forestalled the administration's attempts to end TPS. That means folks from those countries are protected through October 4th, 2021, when we will have a new administration which has full legal authority to extend temporary protected status and has committed to doing so. I do want to just, before wrapping up here, Note that individuals whose TPS is extended, individuals from El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, and Sudan. This is for folks who already hold TPS. It is not a new designation that allows individuals from those countries to apply for the first time. And then I do want to point out that the status and the employment authorization is automatically extended. People from those countries currently hold expired work permits, but employers and then government agencies at all levels, federal, state, and local, are required to accept an expired work permit with the automatic extension date through October 4th, 2021 by virtue of publication in the Federal Register. People with TPS are not required to pay for nor present to their employer or a benefit providing agency a new work permit with a with what appears on its face to be a unexpired date. Those documents have been automatically extended. Important to report that out. And if individuals in the community are being denied employment or benefits on account of having an expired card, despite their status being extended automatically, we encourage them to contact the Office of Immigrant Affairs for more information and to get connected to a legal provider. And with that, I will wrap up. I think we've only got 3 minutes left.